I knew while I was making it how special it was. I didn't know how unique it was, but I knew how special it was to me. And I thought, like, oh, maybe all films could be like this. And it turns out they aren't. I knew someone who was like Trip Fontaine when I was in high school. The world's most easygoing and nice drug dealer. Took some of him and put it into that character. It was so bizarre to me. In high school, I was not a popular dude. So it was like something about being on film, maybe because of my height or something. I don't know. People decided to cast me as these type of guys. I felt very lucky to be placed in that position, but I didn't actually look at it as myself because it was they were the roles, you know? I thought for a long time I was going to be able to recreate that experience and make other independent films like that with great, unique voices that were making something that was tiny but influential. It started a whole new sort of aesthetic in film. I appreciated it fully, but I didn't know the marketplace and like the fact that there aren't that many films being made like that. So wonderful to work with someone like Sophia. She pulled off something that was really unique and super inspiring. The physical aspects of that were very challenging. Ridley had access to so much cutting edge technical stuff. So they could shoot a sequence that was pretty long, involving a lot of different elements like helicopters, a lot of squibs and a lot of gunfire and a lot of actors and a lot of extras. And we could do it all in real time because he had like 8 cameras rolling at once. It felt very real, but it was also incredibly demanding, and it was also maybe a little bit like on the edge of dangerous, or we felt like it was. It was physically daunting. I felt a like deep responsibility to get it right because I felt the book was so harrowing. We had shot like the book 2 different sides. We'd shot the Somali point of view and then the American point of view. But then 9/11, and there was no appetite for a 2-sided version of like American overseas military encounters. So the film became much more about the American side. But at the time while we were filming it, the responsibility felt really, really deep to kind of be able to show from the character's perspective what it felt like, but also with the knowledge because Eversman himself had this sort of like poetic personality and was very in touch with what was actually happening on the ground from the other perspective and was conflicted. And I think that conflict lent itself to that sort of moral kind of center to the film. Well, so my friend Jason Smilovic wrote the script, and he came out to LA with that script like in his backpack. He was very proud of it, and he tried to get it made for a long time. Couldn't get it made kind of within the studio system, but then another friend of ours was a producer, and he said, I want to take this on. They had asked me to be a part of it. I introduced them to Paul McGuigan, and suddenly it just kind of, boom, it came together. And we did a few rewrites and sort of like a few little things, but it was all friends working on it. And then the cast came together, and it was insane. The cast that we got. Like, it was just supposed to be this fun little thing that we were doing amongst friends. And then suddenly the budget got bigger because we had Morgan Freeman, and then the budget got a little bit bigger because we had Ben Kingsley, and the budget got a little bigger because we had Lucy Liu and Bruce Willis, and then Stanley Tucci and Robert Forster, and all these people came on. It was crazy. And then when that happened, the expectations grew a little bit, but the tone of it remained, and everybody was there because of the script. So the tone of it was always going to be that sort of patter-filled, dialogue-heavy scenes that were unique in their way of storytelling. The stuff with Lucy, we just had a good, natural, instinctive rapport in those scenes, and she's such a professional. She just brought it. I was able to react to what she was doing in a way that made sense. I just remember it being so much fun to work with her because she came in just like nailing it every time. So the response had to be that I was nailing it as well, and I think that really worked. I was hired by Fincher. I think he ended up doing it with Mank in a way. We wanted to make a 4-hour black and white version of Black Dahlia. At the time, the budget was getting out of control, and it was at Warner Brothers, and they decided not to make it. But then when it came back together with De Palma, I mean, I was always a huge De Palma fan as well, and it was just the opportunity to work with him was just too enticing. I had a wonderful time shooting it. I liked the world of it, and I liked Bucky a lot, and I'd spent a lot of time sort of thinking about Bucky. I don't know, I mean, the film's reception was odd. People didn't know what to expect, and I was like, how do you not know what to expect? It's Brian De Palma, like, you've seen his films, like, of course it's gonna be like this. It's not gonna be exactly like the book, and it's not gonna be the Fincher version, it's gonna be completely different. It's gonna be a De Palma version. So I was a little bit surprised by the reaction, and I wish that it would have got a better reception, but I'm very proud of it. I'm happy that, you know, we got to take it to Venice, and the audience there really responded to it. And I think people that did see it really enjoyed it, but it was not as successful as we'd hoped it would be. David Slade, he has a uniquely dark sensibility, and I admired him as a filmmaker before that, and he gave me a sort of sense of what he wanted to do visually with the vampires, and he thought he could pull it off. And obviously the comic book was so unique, and the vampires were so visceral. I liked that the character's journey was sort of an inverted hero's journey, and I just wanted, I don't know, at that time I was really looking for something that was going to be like authentically scary. I was young enough that like I was into the plausibility of it, you know? It would be where they would go because it's so dark up there for such a long time, you know, like I was at that point where I was pretty excited about that concept. And ultimately when we went to go film it in New Zealand, we had a wonderful time. Danny Houston is one of my favorites, and he was so good in that role. And it's really effing scary, man. It's a super scary movie. This character had been running for himself, and he didn't really know what was going on. He knew that he woke up with blood on his hands, and he knew that there was bad things happening, but he only had a vague idea of what that was. He was not a happy camper, but the way that first season is written, he's supposed to be like this charming, slick guy, and I played the opposite. And I knew that would pay dividends down the line, because I think then you have to explore where the guy is, as opposed to him just being this sort of anomaly werewolf guy. Third season really makes good on that, and you sort of see where he comes from. It felt earned by the end of it. You like really got a sense of like how these people came together and that they were doomed and fated to be together. Well, I am a girl dad, so like I had that to fall back on, but I wanted it to be stilted, like he was wearing girl dad clothes. It's not supposed to be completely realistic, and he switches from being analytical and trying to figure out how to get out of there to trying to charm his daughter or move her attention in a different direction. It's not done with a lot of grace at times, but it's also done with sincerity. To be someone like that, he had to be a complete narcissist, but he somehow supplanted his own narcissism, his own view of himself, for the view that she has of him. Like that's the thing that he's thriving on. Like if she sees something in him, then he's doing a pretty good job. And in the midst of that game that he's playing, he's actually finding some real feelings, and that's surprising to him. He realizes, oh no, I actually care. Like, what is this? It's a weird kind of dynamic to play. A man kind of coming to terms with this semblance of humanity, which I found really disturbing and wonderful, because why would Knight write that? Like, but at the same time, like it was such an interesting psychology to explore.
I came across the other day this list that somebody made on Letterboxd, the Josh Hartnett movies ranked by haircut. And so it made me think about the fact that like your haircut in each of your movies, I feel like does say something about the characters, whether it's like Zeke in The Faculty or Slevin and Lucky Number Slevin and like the very disheveled kind of look. For Fight or Flight, what does that bleached look do for you?
Well, I mean, you brought up Slevin. I thought Slevin, his entire persona, his entire look, everything about it is just meant to scream like, I'm not a threat. And that's how he's getting in there, right? With this one, the reality of his situation, spending 2 years in Bangkok trying to hide from killers the whole time, he must have gone through a lot of different guises, right? And he's had to fight a lot of people, but he's also tried to change where he's at and how he looks and, you know, everything in order to survive. He got to the point where, you know, he's dyeing his hair different colors or whatever, but then when we find him at this point, it's been a while since he's tried his last disguise. He's just done. That was kind of where I wanted to start the character, from the lowest point and then potentially have him go lower or maybe higher. We'll see.